Metro, train, drive, in transit is on the Elias Macco Show. CJAD 800.
So I sent you a pop quiz, right? Right before this segment, I sent out a pop quiz for all of you listening to send me a text message. And the question I threw at you is, what percentage of drivers do you believe respect the speed limit in school zones? Now I want to start off with Bruce in Dorval. Ladies and gentlemen, Bruce says, get a load of this, Bruce says 70% of drivers respect the school zones. I got to say, Bruce, you stand alone because everyone else texting in was like 0%, 5%. I got some 25% out there, some 15%. One person at 30 to 35. Bruce stood alone, saying that the majority of drivers actually respect the speed limits. I'm here to tell you it's far, far lower than that 70%. André Durocher is in our studios here. He's Director of Community Relations and Road Safety for CAA-Québec. André, Monsieur Durocher, welcome back to the show.
Good morning.
So, why don't you spoil the news here? What percentage of drivers are actually following the rules?
I'm going to go with good and bad news. The good news is actually the numbers improving because last year was even worse. So it used to be last year 94% were not respecting.
94 not. So 6% respect last year.
Yeah. And this year we're down to 89%. Okay. So at least we try to be optimistic. At that pace, I figure in about 20 years we should have it right.
Okay. So right now we're standing at 11% follow the speed limit. Yeah. 89 say to heck with that.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I think that is because people tend to forget that they don't make the difference, between 30 and 50 kilometers an hour. So I'll just give you numbers very quick. I don't want to flood people with numbers, but when you're going 30 kilometers an hour, it takes you about 9 meters to stop. Mm-hmm. At 40, it's 12, and at 50, it's 25.
So that's a big thing. The 40 to 50 is a doubling.
Yeah, it's a doubling. And people are saying, yeah, but why? Very simply because if you're normally when you see something, an obstacle, by the time your brain reacts and puts on the brakes, that 1.5 seconds, well, when you're going 50, you're going faster than that 30. Yeah. So it's important to respect it. And what was interesting, I made the observations myself in one of the schools. And during the one in the middle, because we did it 2 weeks prior to school, 2 weeks, the 2 weeks after when it started, and then 2 weeks later. And during the week where kids were coming in, the police service had a car parked over there. Strangely enough, people were respecting the speed limit of 30. Yeah. Not only were they respecting it, but all the people I clocked on the radar were like at 22, 21 kilometers an hour.
So the solution is a police car in front of every school.
In an ideal world, but because it's not an ideal world and we can't afford to do that, this is why we look at the way we could deal with the engineering, the way the schools are made, when there's crosswalks, when there's school guards, through education, sometimes making the streets narrower, making places where they can drop off. Because one thing that's very interesting, I was a police officer in Montreal for a long time. As you know, most schools in Montreal, very few areas in Montreal, kids have to walk more than a kilometer, which is not that much. Yeah. Yet, because parents are worried about the safety of their kids, they're driving them to school. And by doing so, they're becoming part of the problem.
Yeah. We could turn this into the parenting segment if you want, Andre, because, I've done segments before about, it's actually like to not let your kid walk a kilometer to school. It actually is bad for their development. A whole bunch of reasons why it's bad. But anyways, again, we're not the parenting segment.
Exactly.
We're the in-transit segment. Okay. So it's not just the speed, is it? No, you're seeing tons of other bad behavior. Let's talk about
What's even more shocking than the speed, I would say, is to see parents on their cell phone. I mean, I'm sure that probably if they were walking and would see somebody on their cell phone as their kid is crossing the street, they would find it outrageous. Yeah. But they themselves forget. That is really something. But one thing I want to say, it's interesting. School safety around school zones is everybody's job. And I want to give kudos to one of the school guards, because when I did the observations, I was in a private vehicle. Of course, I don't wear a uniform anymore. Yeah. So after the second or third time, the school crossing guard came to me and he said, sir, this is not the first time I see you in the area over here. Can I know what it is that you're doing here? Because, a man in like my age in 60s around the school zone.
Totally makes sense.
So it makes a lot of sense. I actually congratulated him and I said, good. And when I spoke to people in the area, they said they put a lot of emphasis on that, checking out not only for safety of the kids with regards to cars, but also for anything suspicious.
Yeah, and that is important. Now, the flip side of this is when there's enforcement, when you do enforcement, you get complaints, don't you? Who's doing the complaining?
The parents, the same people that complain to get the school presents. I remember when I was commander of a police station in Montreal, I would always tell the parents the same thing. I have no problem. I'll put some police officers in the school zone, but you guys are going to come complaining tomorrow because you're the ones who are going to be ticketed. Because let's face it, in a school zone at school hours, who else but the parents or somebody who just lives in the nearby area passes through that area.
We're with André Durocher, of course, probably a familiar voice to you, longtime police officer in the city. Now he's at CAA-Québec. So, André, let's actually tell our listeners what they're risking here. Now, obviously, they're risking an accident, hurting a child. We know that. But if you get dinged, these are substantial penalties. I think it's doubled in school zones. So would you like to make the hard case here to our listeners who are driving right now and they're going through a school zone? What's your hard case to shape up and start respecting those rules?
Well, think that, the safety of kids, even if they don't have kids of their own, other than all the penalties what can go with it, the trauma. When people get involved in car accidents, if you hit someone, unless you're a psychopath, I don't know anybody who will
stays with you. It
stays
affects
with you, particularly a child. So it's very important. And also, the area, the reason we were doing these observations is to say that, okay, from the moment we can't put a police officer in every school zone, to work with the cities and with the school commissions, sometimes change the signage, see how we could put, for example, crosswalks with flashing lights, signs that say, okay, slow down, it's a school zone. So all these things to make the area a bit safer, and also if kids can walk, and also telling parents very often, if you drop off your kids at school, don't drop them off on the other side of the street where they have to cross the street. Drop them off on the right side of the street.
What are the penalties? What should drivers know about the penalties?
School bus, something very important. School bus, 9 demerit points, hefty fine. That's very important. But one thing that I want to tell people, because there seems to be some confusion, if a school bus is perpendicular to you and you're going straight, you don't necessarily have to stop. I would say slow down and be careful, but you don't necessarily have to stop. Same thing if there's a, what we call in French, a terre-plein there in the middle. There's no need.
So that's a really good point, right? So you're driving and the school bus is parallel to you, puts out its stop sign. You've got to stop. But when it's perpendicular, right? You're trying to protect the students that would be crossing in front of that bus.
Exactly.
So they're not crossing in front of your path. Of course, slow down. You see lights flashing, slow down, but you don't have to stop there, right?
Exactly.
And in fact, if you slam on the brakes, you could cause an accident.
You can cause an accident. And also it's important, if you don't listen to the school guard crossing, when they put up their stop signs, not stopping, it's just the same thing as not stopping at a stop sign. So if there's a police officer in the area, they could give you a ticket.
All right. The march forward to get to 15 or 20% of people respecting continues.
Hopefully, listen, and if you invite me next year, we'll see how we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Durocher, André, thanks so much for coming in. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
André Durocher, Director of Community Relations and Road Safety over at CAA-Québec.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years.
And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.